All right. What is up, football fans? I am Danny Austin. This is the Live from the 55 podcast here in our Nation Network studios in Marta Loop. And I'm excited to be here. Third episode, trying to figure this out on the go. But I don't know. So far, so good. We have a fun episode today. First off, we've got Ian Busby, longtime sort of Calgary Herald and Sun reporter. He covered the Calgary Stampeders, and honestly, he's one of the smarter guys I know when it comes to talking about football. So we're gonna have him on, and we're just gonna going to talk about the Stamps, what we saw in Week 1, as well as preview tonight's game against the Ottawa Redblacks as best we can. It's a sort of a big one, an important one for the Stamps after they fell to the Lions. After that, we've got Charleston Hughes coming on. Obviously, an all-time great, a guy who is going to have his number. I don't know if he's going to have his number retired, but he'll have his name on the sort of wall of fame for the Stampeders. So really excited to talk to him. I, to be honest, don't have that much of an idea about what we're going to talk about. We are just going to hear what he is up to. I know that I don't think he is formally retired or anything, so I think he's still looking for work. We are going to go right now to Charleston Hughes and then Ian Busby. All right, we got Charleston Hughes coming up here in just 1 second. Before we do, this guest is brought to you by Fraser and Fig, and I just want to thank them real quick. Located at 2010 34th Avenue Southwest. They do ready-to-go cheese and charcuterie boxes that are curated with local and artisanal ingredients. Guys, I'm not kidding. This stuff's amazing. They've got 4 sizes, every occasion. All the boxes come with meat, cheese, dried fruit, fresh fruit, nuts, olives, pickles, and carrots. And, their selections vary month to month, but definitely worth checking out. Fraser and Fig, want to thank them. And now let's go to Charleston Hughes, man. I'm super excited. Charleston, buddy, how you doing?
I'm all right, pretty good.
Yeah. Where are you at right now?
Man, in my office.
Yeah, it's a nice office, man. It looks like a sauna.
Trying to keep it cozy in here.
Yeah, I love it, man. Got to ask, just before I start asking anything about you, I know you played with Derek Dennis. I know you guys are pretty good friends. Thoughts on seeing him retire today? I was a little surprised, not going to lie.
I don't know, man. There comes a time when you just got to do what you got to do, especially when it's for the best of your family. And I think that's probably what the decision was in his head. And when you get toyed around a lot like that and you're on the team and then you're not on the team and, you thought you were doing good during training camp and then things end up going south. And it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know, enough is enough, I guess, for him. So when it's time, it's time. You just got to adapt and roll with the punches, I guess.
It's also one of those things where I don't think people realize the amount of time and effort it takes to keep in shape. And when when you're not getting paid and you're just hoping an opportunity might come, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, man, to stay in shape. I mean, the thing is even when you're done playing football and you retire, you walk away from the game, you're still going to have to stay in shape. I mean, so to some aspect, you're still going to have to work out. You're still going to have to train. You're still going to have to maintain your health. So the thing is you probably won't have to force yourself to do it, but you'll still have to do it.
So for you, what's going on? Are you still staying in game shape?
I'm still staying in game shape, still, waiting my opportunity. The minute I have an opportunity, I'll try to, weigh my options too at that point. I planned on this being my last season, regardless if I'm on a team or not. I'm not playing no more after this. I'm pretty content on, doing what I'm doing now. I'm happy where I'm at. So the thing is I am working out. I am training. I'm working out as though I'm going to play a season. So if my name is called, my name is called. If not, then I'll continue to work out. I'll continue to train. As soon as I get off this call, I'm going to train some kids and put them through a workout and, work on life after football, which I've already been doing since I started my career. So I'm in a position where I'm not stressed.
No, I mean, it's one of those ones. How many do you have in your career sacks at this point?
I think I lost count. I think I got about 137, 135, somewhere in there.
Would it is there a number that you would leave? You got to be satisfied with that number, is I guess what I'm saying. Getting a few more would be great.
I definitely wasn't satisfied, especially because of the last, I would say 2-3 years went ever since COVID. COVID kind of derailed everything for me, at least.
Yeah.
I'd be laughing at sitting top 3, possibly top 1 right now if it wasn't for COVID. And the thing is that kind of derailed my career. And I mean, would I want to be number 1 overall? Yes. Do I think I put forth a performance to be number 1 overall? Hell yeah. And the thing is that do I think I still have the potential to put up double-digit sack years? Hell yeah. It's just opportunity and a coach's vision. If the coach don't visualize me in a certain way and see me producing like I produce, then the thing is man, I can't change anybody's mind. I mean, even throughout my last season I just played, man, I only had 4 sacks in that season. But if you put that into perspective, the amount of times I touched the field, man, I felt like I was just as productive as any other starter in the league. If I started, I would have had 16 battling with Lemon for defensive player of the year with the rest of those guys. But my playtime opportunity wasn't there. So that'll be a big, thing for me is playtime. I have to play. I just got to play. Long as I play, I'll produce. That's the only thing that holds me back.
Well, it's interesting. Like you brought up the COVID year, and I think that's one of those ones that like I kind of hadn't thought about. But like, how many did you get in 2019? Like you got double digits in 2019 for sure, right?
Yeah, I had double digits in 2019. I led the league in sacks again 4 years consecutive.
Yeah.
And then the thing is COVID happened right after that. So I led the league in sacks for 4 years consecutive straight, and then COVID.
Yeah. So let's assume that you get, let's say, like minimum 12 that year. Like suddenly you are looking at top 3 for sure.
Yeah,
right?
if I get 12 sacks, I'm within 10 from
Not say.
yeah, from being number 1 overall. So the thing is yeah, man, stuff happens.
Yeah. I mean, have you this offseason, like, did you sort of assume that it would potentially you'd have to wait a little bit? I know that there are guys who they understand that it might not be first day of free agency. Was this sort of what you were expecting?
I was expecting it, man, because of the amount of young guys that are out there, and the league is kind of transitioning right now. You can see it. I mean, you got to be, for the players that have been around for a long time, you can see when a shift in the league starts to happen. And there's a shift in the league that's starting to happen right now, and you can see it. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, buts about it. I mean, you just got to kind of roll with the punches and let things play out how they play out. I've already, kind of had in my head, I'll be one of those guys that would be brought in, after they see all the young guys play and see what they bring to the table. And then they know they can bring me in, and they know I'll hit the ground running, being the same Charleston I've been, throughout the years. So I anticipated that happening. So it's one of those things where, like I said, I kind of felt like that was how it was going to be.
Fair enough. When you say shift, do you mean like generational from like one age group to a younger age group, basically?
Yeah, I mean, throughout my career, I've always paid attention to the shift in the league, or the way the league transitions in and out of each season. One season it's an up sack year. One season it's a down sack year. Like, and every single year it'll go, somebody will jump out and get 18 sacks, and the next year the leader will be 11 sacks, and the next year it'll be 19 sacks, and the next year it'll be 11 sacks lead the league in sacks. So each and every year it transcends back up and down, up and down. More teams are running, more teams are passing, more teams are stacking the box. And it's just like all the coaches kind of play off each other that way. And just like last year was more of a up sack year for a lot of people. Now watch this year. It's going to be a stack the box. Probably going to be a low sack type of year. So it bounces around. And now I think it's one of those kind of years where it's the year of everybody wants to take shots on the younger players and the young guys to see if they can pan out. And, all teams aren't doing that. All teams don't follow that same trend, but most teams do. They follow a trend where they want to take shots and try to see if it works out. And if it works out, it works out. And kudos to them. Good scouting team. But if it don't work out, then you got to go back and find the savvy veteran, where I know they're going to make plays and I know what they're going to give me.
It's why I'm like, honestly, like with you, but also like with Lemon, I'm just so surprised that he doesn't have a job right now, because you know what you're going to get from Sean Lemon, right? And like, you know what the production you're going to get. So it's surprising to me that a guy like that doesn't have a job right now too. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, it's surprising, man, and I feel bad for him because it almost makes you feel disrespected. It almost makes you feel like the league doesn't value certain things. It almost makes you feel like, I mean, really that, all the work that he put in, last year was, I wouldn't say it was for nothing, because he made some great accomplishments because of that. But I think all that work he put in, the teams just didn't value it like they should. And I mean, I've seen it happen before. I mean, the thing is I've put in a season like that before where I thought I was supposed to be Defensive Player of the Year, and I was laughing, and I wasn't. So the thing is it happens, man. I mean, sometimes your talents get overlooked, and when someone has a vision of you, it's hard to wipe away that vision.
Yeah. I feel like there's just stories that, like, I don't know. There's certain positions where it's just everyone decides this guy's the best. And it's just that gets repeated year after year after year. And I'm not going to name anyone specific, but for you right now, and like, who do you think is the best defensive end in the league, like right now?
I mean, right now, after watching, this first game go by, I would 100% say Willie Jefferson is moving at a totally different speed than I've seen him move in all the years past. And I think something lit a fire in him because I can see the way he's moving. I can see the way he's pass rushing. I can see he's put in a hell of a lot of work in the offseason. And I could see big things coming from him this year. I could tell by the way he's moving way different than I've ever seen him move, at least pass rushing in the past. So I'm hoping to see great things from him, man. And I hope he continues to just hold the pace that he's holding right now, because coming out with that kind of energy, that can just spring you out through the rest of the season.
Yeah. You don't have to answer this, but if Calgary called, would you consider coming back?
100%.
Good.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't say no, because that's one of the hotspot teams where I feel like, I want to end my career. I want to play my last season there, and I'll probably walk away and look for the sunset and walk into it.
Because you're tied for the all-time leader for sacks here, right? Like, I want you to get that one more. I wanted that for you in 2017. And I know, like, I don't think in the immediate aftermath, I don't think you were particularly happy with the Stampeders, but like, you're one of those guys who, like, I know is going to end up on the Wall of Fame. So it's like, I think it'd be perfect, to be honest.
Yeah, man. That one sack just dangling over my head like that. I mean, I would really, really want to get that one sack. And that's one of the goals that I did set out to get. I know, to be an all-time sack leader and to be tied with one of the greats like Will Johnson, man, is an awesome accomplishment. But to be number one overall is the ultimate, accomplishment. And the thing is, if I can't get the opportunity to lead the league in sacks, and I'm only top 5 right now, I still feel like that's awesome, man. I've done more than most probably could even dream of.
You're top 5.
Only top 5.
Yeah, come on, man. Top 5 all time. That's not that's ridiculous. Well, man, I just wanted to have you on, check in. I know Sam fans are going to be happy to hear from you. So thank you so much for joining, man. I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on, man. I enjoyed it a lot. You caught me in my office. You got to see my wood panels.
I know.
I got 2 computer screens in front of me right now, so I'm a little tired.
That's unreal, man. Well, yeah, it's honestly a better background than any other guest I've had, so it looks cool. So, well, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing you out on the field again. So, really appreciate you. Thank you.
Can't wait.
Awesome. All right, and that again was brought to you, that guest, by Fraser and Fig, who are here in Marda Loop, 2010 34th Avenue Southwest. These guys, honestly, man, like, their charcuterie boxes and cheese boxes are unbelievable. It's all local, all artisanal. And, they've got 4 sizes that suit every occasion. They've got meat, cheese, dried fruit, fresh fruit, nuts, olives, pickles, carrots, everything you could want. And we just want to thank them again for sponsoring us today. Ian Busby. I'm trying to think.
Hello, Danny Austin. How are you?
Ian Busby. I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah,
I
I mean, it's funny.
appreciate
We should introduce you to people who may not know. But I think anyone who has covered the Calgary Stampeders or followed the Stampeders for a long time will know who you are. But
Maybe. I don't know.
it's been a little while since you've covered the team full time.
Full time, yes.
Yeah.
2012 was my last full-time season, but I was covering them up until 16.
Yeah,
So-
you were doing work with 3 down until about 16, right?
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
Calgary Herald.
And the Calgary Herald.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, and then I focused on my other media jobs, which then ended. And then now I'm kind of on the outskirts of the media, but I'm still around.
Yeah.
And you can still hear my voice on radio in this town occasionally.
So when I moved to Calgary, my first full-time media job in Calgary was at the Calgary Sun. And you were the Stamps guy. And you have,
Yeah.
since I started in 2016, covering the team for the papers. You have been an invaluable resource to me.
Well,
So,
and I always say, it was like, why are you friends with Danny? I'm like, he has my old job. That's why.
yeah,
And he's done way better at it than I
I
ever
don't know
did.
why
So-
people are asking why we're friends. I'm a great friend. Everyone should want to be friends with me.
No, it wasn't why we were
yeah,
friends. How do we know each
How
other?
do we know each other?
Yes,
Fair.
we used to work together, and you have my old job.
Yeah. So, so I don't know. Like we also we'd done a little bit of podcasting together a couple years ago, and when the idea for Live from the 155 came up, we were trying to figure out a way to incorporate you, and then our schedules are trying to kind of make them align.
Right.
'Cause I want you on as often as possible, but I don't know. It's good to have you here, man. And you're one of the smarter people I know about Canadian football. And I think that you have a real sense of the history, particularly of sort of the entire Huffnagel era. So,
Well, and that's the thing. Like I was covering the team full time when John Huffnagel came in as the GM and head coach. So I've watched this whole thing transpire and seeing, and it's funny now I see guys at the stadium when I go and I'm like, there's, old player. And I'm like, hey, how's it going? And I was like, oh yeah, it's like, remember when I played? I'm like, yeah, no, I was there for your drafting and then
yeah.
all that kind of. So I've followed the team all the way from, my first year covering in any capacity was the 2004 season, which was the Matt Dunnigan head coach GM year where they went 4-14. It was a bit of a mess. That's the easiest way to say it. Then the team got bought by the Forzani group, and then it was transferred over to the Flames. And so I've seen this whole thing for the last, is that 20 years already?
Yeah.
Jeepers. Okay.
So, I mean, I think that obviously you and I were texting a little bit during
The game,
the
yeah.
home opener, and
I wasn't sure how much to bug you.
I'm very.
I was one of the
just-
few people that was sitting in the stands. So.
I just don't reply when people during games.
No, I know.
It is unusual. So since I've started covering 2016, there have been a lot of season openers that have been at times underwhelming. This team's only won 2 of the last 7.
Yeah. Like when you mentioned that, I was like, okay, that's true. They always come out of the gate a little bit slow.
So which I think is largely
because
because they don't play their starters as much as other teams in the preseason. But I am trying not to overreact at all, because I do think that a little bit of patience with this group. But I know you were pretty concerned with what you saw on the field.
Well, the opening drive was basically BC comes out and so Stamps have the ball first, right? They go down the field to get into field goal position. You think, okay, easy, quick 3 points, get on the board, let's do it. And Rene misses that field goal, which was so uncharacteristic. It just
He missed the first 2.
Yeah, he missed, and then they missed the next one. Yes, so it was, and then so BC runs out of the end zone. I'm like, 15-yard line. Okay, pin him deep. And they just went bam, 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 bam down the field, and it felt like, okay, so Nathan Rourke was this phenomenon last year. The BC Lions don't look like they've dropped off at all. And I felt like their offensive coordinator, who was a former Stamps video coach back in the 2000s, Jordan Maximic, I think that's how you say his name. But he's a brilliant offensive guy. And he just had his game plan ready to go and was like, bam, bam, bam. Like it just caught the Stamps flat footed. You could see them just like, well, there's guys in motion. The ball's getting there. And Vernon Adams is just like, pick, 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 pick. They're in the end zone. Wow. Okay. And right from there, I thought, okay, now that they're going to have to figure this out. And it took them so many, what did you say, 3.5 quarters for the offense to just do something that felt like any creativity at all?
Yeah. I mean, I think that lack of creativity is something that I've honed in on a little bit. The play calling, to be honest, like they didn't take any risks. Like the risk reward, just that balance, what I didn't feel like was there. I felt like there were a lot of, like, when they did pass, it was 2 or 3 yard passes when they try to get yards after carry. I mean, when you have a Reggie Begelton out there, like, he's going to get you those yards after carry. But I think it was Derek Taylor in Winnipeg was just like, this is boring to watch and not particularly effective.
What I saw from the Stamps offense was the same plays every time. And it was, okay, you're not trying to get these guys in motion, where the BC Lions offense was trying to hit your receivers in motion so they have a chance to continue going forward, where it was like, okay, just curl routes on the Stamps all the time, and then expecting, okay, run up the field 10 yards, turn around, catch the ball.
Yeah.
It just felt stilted. And then when Kadeem Carey goes out, it's just, okay, well, this team doesn't, they couldn't pick it up there. But obviously it would have been helpful to have Mills on the roster, but you can't do that in the CFL, right? That's the limitations with the CFL all this time.
Yeah. And I mean, I do question a little bit. I mean, by the time Kadeem went out, the Stamps were down pretty considerably. So I don't know how much they were going to run the ball.
Yeah, but that was their most effective plays. Like,
I know.
Yeah. So I don't think you should get away from what you're doing, but also you have to be a little bit more creative in getting the ball into your hands of your receivers. Now, I was watching a few different players, and I didn't watch Begelton as much but you mentioned something about how you didn't think he was open downfield as much. And I felt like they were trying to get him the ball, which was the thing to do.
So if we're going to talk about the receivers, like, first of all, think that, like, a little bit of patience with Malik Henry. I don't think Malik Henry had his best game. I think he should have caught that sort of low pass right in the end zone after the Cam Judge interception, and he didn't catch it. It was not an easy catch, but it was one that you kind of want your star receiver to make. And I do think that, like, Malik's not having his greatest game threw the offense off as a whole. Because he's supposed to be,
he's going to be one of your key members of this team, right? So,
and then with Reggie, like, I don't know that it was Reggie not getting open downfield so much as them not looking to him downfield. Like, that was what was weirder to me. But I do, again, I mean, everything I'm going to say comes down to the Stampeders team saying this is week 1, and like, Jake didn't play in the second preseason game.
Right.
How was he going to get on the same page as his receivers? I'm not sure that that's, like, a reasonable expectation. And then, like, so that was sort of my thing on offense, is just all looked disjointed. I didn't think that the offensive line, I didn't think that the tackles looked particularly great. I will say that, like, Zach Williams getting back in at left guard for this game, I think, is going to make a huge amount of difference, both in the run game and, to be honest, in the protection. And then we're going to see a guy named Caleb Benenoch. This is me. Like, you're not at practice every day, so this is me getting very specific, and I'm not asking you to have an opinion on Caleb Benenoch. I don't have much of an opinion on him because I haven't seen him.
And it's hard for us to really judge offensive linemen, right? But
I mean, you see where the pressure's coming from. And I think Hugh Thornton's shown that he can play. I think that there are the 2 tackle positions, because Derek Dennis, who has retired, and we're going to get to that before we're done here, obviously. And then Julian Good-Jones signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I think that those, like, 2 very important positions on the field where they are sort of, I don't want to say they're making it up as they're going along, but they're trying new faces in there. And I think that open competition can be good, but you also want stability at those positions, because Jake needs his time.
Yes.
And then those positions are big for the run game as well. So I did think that the O-line struggled. I think, just to be honest, as a whole, I thought it was a bad game for the offense.
Yes.
And
I think whatever was going on with Jake, he just didn't have that oomph and confidence that you normally have seen from him when he's come in, especially when he's come in the middle of games and filled in. I felt like when it was 2 seasons ago, when he first came into to replace Bo, I thought, this guy's got a lot of, like, I think one of the first things you said about him was like, that guy's not lacking confidence.
No.
But now there was just a few moments in that game where, like, if you're running, like, you got the ball, you got 5 yards to get first down, go for it. Where is his, like, I don't know, that he's trying to finagle things too much. Maybe I'm just watched too much NFL and all these smash mouth quarterbacks and, like, the Josh Allen types who are like, okay, I know I can go for that and get.
And you have on the other side Vernon, who is practically dancing through the defense. So there was a pretty sharp contrast. And I think that, I get more emails than I want to admit from angry readers who to be honest, like generally feel like I'm too easy on the Stampeders, which, you know, there may be something to that. But, you know, the argument that I hear most commonly, and this is dating back to probably like 2021 with Bo, was that like, okay, professional football has gone in a way where you need your quarterback to be able to pick up a couple yards on the ground, and that Bo didn't do that. Now Jake did run later in the game. Like I think he'll
well, and I think he probably went back to the sidelines and was like, hey, you got a wide open 7-8 yards, go down there and like slide.
Exactly.
So there was one play in particular, I can't remember when it was, but he saw that the opening was there and he threw it to Hakanavanu, who was covered, and it was like, you're not, that was a bad play. Like it was just not a like the smarts heads up type of thing. And maybe that's coming from early season not getting enough reps.
And I think it's inevitable. Like the problem, like I think one of the things that's happened is because of the way that the West semifinal went, where Jake did have the worst game of his career.
Right. Also against the Lions, which is
also
against the
Lions. It's now sort of 2 in a row where he's been underwhelming. I think by and large, if you look at Jake's incredibly short career, he is still doesn't have. I don't think he has a full season of starts under his belt.
And this is the really first time he's ever been the starter.
100%.
Like he came in and filled in for the last half of last year, but Bo was right there. So
he didn't have a training camp as the starter.
Yes.
So I think that like by and large, what is missing in some of the people who are willing to just completely dismiss Jake based on what they saw in week 1 and what they remember from the playoffs is that like he's been very good for most of his time.
And we're probably looking at it as comparing him against Bo Levi in the start of his career, where they just won and won and won and won, and he built up this resume of the highest winning percentage of any quarterback in history. But they did that with a very solid veteran team, right? It's like, okay, so this is not the same situation, and we can't hold Jake to the standard of Bo Levi Mitchell in his first few years, because that was just unprecedented.
Yeah, and I think that the challenge right now is when we talk about that standard, like we don't have a choice but to hold the Stampeders. And this is where you having, you know, been there since the start of the Huffnagel era, like the standard for the Calgary Stampeders has to be
first place. First place, close to West final. You're probably going to the Grey Cup. And that's the thing now. It's been 3 straight first round exits for the Stampeders organization.
They haven't won a playoff game since 2018. They haven't finished.
So there's definite butt clenching and angst over at McMahon Stadium because of that. And they may not, I still look at them as, okay, since so it's been 15, 16, 17 seasons. They've been the best team overall. They've made the most Grey Cup appearances. They won the most Grey Cups. But, when you go 3-4 seasons without that, you start to feel that. And that's why this week is important. Honestly, you go into Ottawa. This is a team you should beat, a team that looked lackluster on offense. So your defense should have a night of feasting. And
I'm going to jump to the Ottawa game in a second. I do want to very quickly, just before we move on from last week's game, I do want to say that I actually thought Trey Odom-Dukes,
he looked pretty good.
Was pretty good.
The type of possession slot guy you're looking for.
Exactly. The guy that the Stampeders offense relies on. And, I talked to Nick Lewis a couple of weeks ago and he said, look, man, like the Stampeders offense works when you have 3 receivers.
Yes.
Like going at all time. And the fact that like, I just have full faith in Malik Henry and Reggie Bagleton to get going. I think that they're elite American receivers. It
feels like they are not going to be in a trouble situation there.
Exactly. So as long as those guys, if Trey does what he did in week 1 and those guys also get their game together. And again, I'm not actually implying that they were that bad, but it just, the numbers weren't there. Then I have no real worries about the pass game. And I also think that like people need to give BC a little bit of credit for what they did.
100%.
They were aggressive on defense. And didn't take many penalties. It was pretty impressive.
I thought week 1 performance. Overall BC looks like a very well coached, like on the rise team who they had a star quarterback and they were like, okay, we lost our star quarterback. Doesn't mean we're going to drop off. And I think they're enjoying the whole fact that people to think, oh, well, just because we lost Nathan Rourke from his one great half year, that they were going to somehow fall off the face of the earth. And they're not, clearly.
And, they have a confidence in Vernon Adams, which I really like. I think Vernon Adams might be one of the, I have no idea. Let's be clear. This is me.
This was a few years ago. We were talking about Vernon Adams and Cody Fajardo were the next generation of stars. And all those team guys are in different spots. And I'm like, and Vernon might be one of those guys who needs a coaching staff that's fully behind him.
and that, has his back and builds the offense around him a little bit.
And that's what I felt like when I was watching what Jordan was doing with that offense. Was like he knows what he has in Vernon Adams, and he's not going to ask him to do things he can't do. He's just going to have him do things he can't.
Exactly, and he did them very well against the Stampeders. Quickly on the defensive side of the ball, I think it's really, really hard to evaluate the DBs. There were changes made at the last minute to that group. I also just honestly, it's week 1, but man, Dominic Grimes might be the best receiver in the CFL. He is absolutely exceptional and like high volume as well. But like went up and over some pretty good Stampeders DBs. I'm not worried about them. What I do think I'm going to be watching incredibly closely is the defensive line. I have no worries about Mike Rose, but I will be honest with you, I didn't think Vaughters and Hauser necessarily brought the pressure the way that you would want from two guys who were brought in to replace Sean Lemon and Fuller and Malade, who we know are elite pass rushers. And I thought that was missing. And you just, that's one of the keys to the season. They are paying James Vaughters to be a star. I'm not saying one game means he's not.
No.
But I'm saying that.
But it could, like, he has been out of this league for a few years, and it is a difference out there.
Yeah.
You got to cover a lot more ground as a defensive end, especially when you're on wide side, right? So it's going to be that you do understand. You would hope that this week they will be getting after and focusing a little bit more with that. I thought defensively they were fine. Like after that first drive against BC, they came back. They only allowed what, 18 more points the rest of the game. So it's not like they got blown away.
No. And I mean, it's interesting. Like there are very few plays where I feel like I can say this, but there was, I believe early in the fourth quarter, the BC's last touchdown drive, Trey Roberson took a roughing the passer penalty on Vernon Adams, which was 100% the right call. If you watch that play, Vernon, you can't tell if he's down. He is. It's the right call. Trey hit him late, but like it's not one of those ones where I think you're breaking down the film and yelling Trey Roberson be more responsible, and that cost them 15 yards. And effectively, the Lions 4 plays later were in the end zone, and it did feel like that play was a weird turning point because Mike Rose had just sacked Vernon Adams. It was only first down, so I'm not saying the drive was dead, but it was one of those ones where it was like actually not. Like it might not have been a mistake, but was a penalty. Yeah. Like I don't know that if I'm a coach, I'm telling Trey Roberson, finish your tackle. Yeah. Finish your tackle. I couldn't tell if
and sometimes things just go against you. And
exactly.
You have to recover from them. But you're right. It turned out, and then it felt like the nail was in the coffin and it was done.
Totally. Yeah. But then we're looking ahead at Ottawa. I'm going to quickly just go over the few changes that we have on the depth chart here, which I'm not sure if we're going to be able to pull this up in post-production, but if not, I mean, look, the big one is Kadeem Carey is out. He's on the 6-game injured list. He had a huge boot on his leg, so it was pretty clear what was happening. I know that the Stampeders are relatively optimistic about him
not having the full 6 games.
Not having I think they think it's possible, and the CFL currently it's much easier than it used to be to pull guys off the 6 game. But stepping in is Dedrick Mills, and you have Peyton Logan. Those guys have both run for 100 yards in this league. They're in their second year. This is one of those weird ones where the superstar of your team, arguably, probably your best player, is hurt, and you're maybe
the drop off is not going to be that difficult to replace. Yeah. And both of those guys, especially Logan, I was very impressed with him on special teams. He is like, watch out for this kid. He's going to have some big plays this year. And he just brings a lot of energy and enthusiasm to that unit too.
He's small. He bounces. He's super quick. He hits holes hard. And what I like about that sort of combination with him and Mills, as well as that combination with him and Carey, it's not like Carey is not physical, but like Mills is so big, and he almost I remember the first time that I watched him play, which I believe was against Ottawa last year. And he just said, he's like, my goal is to make sure guys don't like hitting me.
Yeah.
And he
which would be the running back goal.
Yes. But like,
make it difficult.
He that guy goes into contact, like saying like, we're both coming out of this. Yeah. This is like, you're not hurting me. I'm not hurting, you know what I mean? But like put in the pain. And so I'm not actually that worried about Kadeem Carey.
No. Well, I mean, it's a long season. A few games off is not going to really, it's going to probably crush his overall numbers because he probably has looked at, I want 1,000 yards this year and I want this and that. But again, he
said he wanted to be MOP, and I'll be honest with you, if he misses 4 games, I think that's
very difficult to
do that.
I mean, you'd have to put up John Cornish type numbers. And And so that's the thing about the Stamps should be a run heavy team because of the way they're built. And they just weren't doing that in the first game. And obviously because of certain circumstances, but now I look at what the game plan against Ottawa should be. Like, let's establish that. And as you mentioned, Mills likes playing in Ottawa. That was our first game last year. And that I remember that game being very low scoring. The Stamps
that was the game that
defense,
Dickinson missed because he had COVID. So Mark Killam was head
Right.
coach for that game.
Yeah.
And you say low scoring. I say that game was bad.
Yes, 100%. I was being kind.
That game was the only good thing about that game was Stampeders game.
Was the final score 17-3 or something?
Something like that. I don't.
Yeah,
to be honest, the CFL's stats don't work anymore, so it's really hard to go back and check what the score was or how many yards a guy had. My goal for this podcast would be able to back up my points with numbers, but the geniuses at Genius Sports have apparently decided that they're going to launch let's just talk about it for 1 second. And I don't even need you to respond. They sent out this press release and they were like, hey guys, you're not going to have live stats, fans. Sorry. We're replacing our stats platform with a new stats platform. And it's just taking a little while longer than we thought, but don't worry. It'll be up soon. It'll be worth it. Your job, I guess the first priority of your job as a professional sports league is to actually have professional sports. Your second priority is probably to have stats to explain what is happening. And they don't have it. It's like, explain to me. I don't know. I've never built a data platform, but why do you have to take one down to replace it with another? Why not just keep the original up there until you're ready to launch the new one? I don't get it. Anyways, I keep sort of critiquing my podcasting as I go. Might not be good podcasting because, of course, anyone in their right mind knows that it's stupid not to have stats.
It's just a huge step back. It felt like 20 some years ago that live stats came into CFL games and they had no problems because it was play by play.
Probably 30 years after the invention of the internet, when every other sports league had professional had stats. Yeah. But anyways, we're going to say that last year's Stampeders Redblacks game is 17-3. We don't know.
You cannot find that information anywhere?
Oh, no, I could definitely Google my own story from it. I was at the game in Ottawa.
Okay.
Do you want? Okay, all right, I'll do it.
No, you don't have to find it.
You just vamp for a minute. We'll find the score.
I used to love the CFL stats guru because I would
Steve Daniel is a genius. It was 17. Look at that, 17-3.
See, that's my memory.
Yeah. It comes up on Google. Thank you, Google, for figuring out how to keep stats.
But I used to come up with weird things for Steve Daniel to look up, and I think he had a love-hate relationship with me because he was a busy man. And I would ask him. So one time I was like, hey, what's the most amount of yards anybody's had without getting a touchdown? Because Nick Lewis had 600 yards and he hadn't had a touchdown yet. And then he looked it up and the record was 796 or something by a Saskatchewan guy from the 80s. And then turns out Nick Lewis got a touchdown. Romby Bryant came through with 800 and some yards that year without getting a touchdown. Two guys on one team had almost 1,400 yards together with 0 touchdowns. So that's hard to do. And Steve Daniels looked that up for me and found all the information I needed. That was just the type of stuff he would do. And now
Steve is, to be clear, if there's one person who's not the issue, it's Steve.
Steve Daniels is amazing. Yeah.
I don't know who at Genius Sports is responsible for this. They're the real enemy. I'm kidding.
You have been making fun of Genius Sports since the Grey Cup, where it was announced that they were bringing these guys on board,
and then wouldn't tell us who they were or what they were going to do.
Right? Yeah. Which was always that was a Randy Ambrosia special because he was like, "Well, here's our big announcement at the commissioners thing. We're bringing on Genius. Who are these people?
No,
they're called Genius Sports."
That press conference got me in trouble, to be honest.
You've never gotten in trouble before.
No, because I specifically asked that, actually, let's not. This is the third episode. I don't need to just go into all of my fights.
You can blame me if you want.
I'm not even mad at the CFL for not having stats. I'm mad at Genius Sports for not, for whatever is happening. It's the one thing you need to do. Imagine not being able to check a batting average.
Well, here's the thing. It's it affects you doing your job in covering this team and being accurate in your information. So
and doing basic podcasting where I can reference the score from the game last year.
Right.
So anyways, let's move on from this little Danny Austin rant because
Okay.
yeah, I think it's great. And honestly, when Genius gets those Nickelodeon cameras up, I think that's really gonna change the direction of the league.
So one thing I want to talk about,
For the
and
record,
maybe you don't
just to
want
be clear on what that was referencing.
Okay.
When I did the interview with Randy Ambrosi, his
Yeah.
like thing that he was really excited about was that like they were putting up these like high tech cameras that were going to be able to monitor everything, and then they were going to be able to do the Nickelodeon games. So still waiting
like
on
the big splash in the end zone.
Yeah, we don't have Nickelodeon in Canada, so
I don't understand why we would actually.
Yeah,
want
who
that.
cares? Let's
the one thing, being in the stadium as a fan the other night, and I know you talked about this in your last show, the fan experience in McMahon Stadium is not great. When I was covering the team a decade ago, and this was before Hamilton and Winnipeg and Saskatchewan all had their new stadiums, people would say, McMahon is garbage. It's the reason I don't want to go to games. And I'd be like, it's not even that bad compared to like the old crap in Winnipeg and Taylor Field in Regina and the old Iverwin Stadium. And now that I've been to all those other stadiums, except for Regina, I've never been there, but since
you've been to Mosaic, now you've been to Tim Hortons in Hamilton,
and Ottawa, the Grey Cup in Ottawa is fabulous. And the fan experience there is like, you don't have to be in your seats to enjoy the game. There's very few places in McMahon where you can just lounge with people, have a drink and converse, and then be able to watch.
Step one to that is Stamps House, which is the old Red and White Club.
Yes.
I don't actually know how people get into that. I just walked up and showed my accreditation, and they let me.
And I didn't try to get into that because I didn't know if I could get into it.
It's awesome. It is a huge step forward.
Now that's one of the things the team can do without having to revamp and put a new stadium in.
Well, I mean, if the rumors are true and the Dinos are moving out and into their own new stadium that they're building, that tells us a lot that the university team is leaving the stadium because it's not acceptable and the professional team is still there.
Yes.
It's also, this is the most deeply, like, I don't know what to say about this anymore because there's not going to be a new stadium coming.
No.
Danielle Smith is not coming in with $200 million to just buy an election. I don't know that I should say that. Just to build to build a new stadium. The reality is, like, I think that everything that I have heard is that the last time that there was serious money that was sort of earmarked for improvements to McMahon Stadium was when we were going to do the Olympic bed.
Yes.
And that was going to be a considerable renovation. I do not believe that the ownership, like CFL revenues, especially when you're drawing 18,000 people, are not going to ever justify mass private investment in a stadium. You will not repay it. So if we accept that we're just not getting a new stadium anytime soon, and like, I think that Calgarians and Stamps fans have to accept that. And I'm not saying it's good enough. I'm not saying like people should be happy with it, but what's the alternative? Is to sit here and just for the next 10 years just continue to moan about it? Like, we've got to find creative solutions.
And it's I ran into somebody I hadn't seen for 15 years, and we sat during the second half of the game, and it's like, you can't complain about the stadium. We're sitting out in the sunshine having a beer and everything's great. It's like, yeah, but we're older football fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the younger generation that you want to bring in, and you got to try and get them in somehow. And I know that end zone seating thing that was a part of that, but you just don't have a concourse thing like the Rum Hut or whatever, the one in the Pilsner Zone in Saskatchewan. You just don't have that like little party atmosphere. Now, maybe you can fix that somehow in here in Calgary. I don't know. But I actually enjoyed having nobody in the stands because I went and sat in 4 different premium seats over 4 quarters.
And I think we're going to see incremental improvements, and that's what we can ask for. I think that Stamps House was the first step.
Yeah.
Like, it's so, I don't know. I hate on some level, like, I just have so much sympathy for the people like who they're not going to be the ones paying for a new stadium. They're not going to be the ones, like, it's these people who are really trying hard. And I don't know that the money's there. What I would hope, my problem is this. I think when you go to an arena or a stadium and it is that empty, it was half empty.
Yeah.
It makes you as a casual fan less likely to go back.
Yes.
The thing that makes you want to go to a stadium is when it's
bumping
and you feel, and like, I don't know, like, I'm not trying to like be a therapist here, but I think it makes me feel when I'm at something that's packed.
Yeah.
Like I got the special ticket. Like, I'm a VIP for being in the stadium. This is awesome. Everyone wants to be where I am.
Yeah.
And then when you go to a place where there's no one, you almost feel like you're like, oh man.
Yeah. I don't want to be one of the last ones left.
And the
to
hardcore
close-
fans won't
shut
feel
the
that
lights
way.
off.
The
Yeah.
hardcore fans won't feel that way. But that's what I hope that this is not, you want to see the ball start rolling in the other direction. People
Yes.
having such a great time. People coming from a Cavalry game and saying, "Oh my God, I had such a great time. That was
Yes.
awesome. I'm going to bring all my friends next time." That's what you want. And I just hope that, these media outlets that don't cover the Stampeders but decided to write stories on the low fan
Yeah.
attendance.
Well, and it was an easy negative story to
It's
jump
an easy
onto.
negative story to jump on. And it's just like, it bothers me a little bit. And I think like the team deserves better. I certainly think on the football side, they've been doing the right things for a long time. And to be honest, under Jay McNeil, I'm really impressed with the steps that they are taking.
Yeah.
I was at the fan forum with John Bender in May, had a blast there. Really, really felt like seeing that energy, seeing them reach out directly with fans. But now it is a matter of connecting, yes, with the new generation and with younger people. And to be honest, with like different communities beyond just white people on some
Yeah.
level. The only thing is that like we've been having these conversations for 7 years since I've been covering the team at the very least.
Right.
And like, I think
Yeah.
it's just hard, and I'm not a marketing expert, but look, next week's the Riders, right?
Well, and
Like,
that's the thing. So
get
and
27,000.
when you look at the first opening game on a Thursday night in the middle
a
of
school
June.
night,
Well, and June is just tough. And anybody who has kids knows that June is the busiest month of the year. And it just is. There's so much going on. I managed to be like, okay, no, I'm going to go to the game. Like I had to make, like, I'm going to this game because I wanted to. And you look now like, okay, Thursday, it was a bad night. It was super hot out, but it just didn't feel like a perfect time for it. And it was earlier than everybody expects. And I hear so many weird, stupid
it
things.
also was that not the earliest game in the year in Calgary Stampeders history?
I think so.
This is
Because
why when I hear all of these, there's
but when people tell me it was like the Grey Cup's got to be a month earlier, and I'm like, well, that means you got to move the season a month earlier to start.
none of those
nobody
people who
want-
make that argument will hear the counter arguments.
Yes.
Like they are just like, oh, the weather's bad. That's the only thing that matters. Move the Grey Cup forward so that it's in early November or late October. Yeah, if you live in Calgary, you know that early November and late October is no guarantee that the weather's
It's
better
great. Yeah,
anyways.
it's not. It's a crapshoot.
And we are conditioned to watch football in the fall and early
Yes.
winter. So
Yeah.
and we're not conditioned to watch it in May and June. And
Well,
frankly,
and
I
maybe
don't.
you can shorten the actual CFL regular season with a 10th team if they could ever get one. But they've added in these bye weeks. So right now, you have to wait till the NFL draft is complete before you can start your process of going to camp and everything.
Mhm.
So there was not any early. This is the earliest you could actually do it. And the Grey Cup's in mid-November this year. So anybody who's complaining about that, it is moved back a little. It's not on the week of American Thanksgiving, which is where it always used to be. So
I couldn't
anyway,
agree more.
it just felt like, okay, so that was your opening game on a Thursday night. But as you said, next Saturday night, it's the Riders in town, primetime game. It's gonna.
It's
I would
not mid-July,
hope.
it's
I would
mid-August.
hope that we're gonna get that 27,000, and it's gonna be busy and like get that momentum back.
It would certainly help if the Stampeders beat the Redblacks
yes.
on Thursday and get back to 1-1. I don't think at 0-2. I think people are going to panic. Do you think they are right to panic if the Stampeders lose to the Redblacks on Thursday night?
No, because I think then you look at the next week, Riders are going to come in here probably or they'll be 1-1, right? So they
Yep.
beat Edmonton. I felt like that was a loss because they should have lost that game. It's unbelievable how Edmonton can't stop stumbling over their own feet. It's ridiculous.
They're getting closer.
They're getting closer. Yeah.
They had 32,000 in the stands. We do genuinely applaud that. It is
Yes.
good to see. If
Well,
you care about Canadian
you
football,
can't punch it
it's good
in
to
from the 5-yard line. So just
they're
brutal
not the
that
first
way.
team to not be able to do that.
No,
I'm
I know,
trying-
but it just felt like there was a little bit more riding on it for that team than anyway. No, it's not going to be a dire situation, but you don't want to start 0-2 and have a must win against the Riders in week
I'm
3.
pretty sure it's Winnipeg up after that. Although you have a bye week
Yes.
sandwich somewhere in there. So
Yeah, they're a long weekend bye, and then they're on the road so they're going to be gone for another month between their Rider game and the
I know.
Yeah.
Not being on the road is great.
right.
Really
Tell me how you
feel-
really feel, Danny.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Yeah, I used to travel a lot, and it was it was good
I'm
fun.
not going to talk about it.
You talked about
Yeah,
it. without talking
I
about it.
honestly, I do think that it is a little bit. If they come out and the offense doesn't look better, against a Redblacks team that, like, there's no bigger fan of Nick Arbuckle as a person than me.
Yeah.
I don't think he looked very good in week 1. Dave Dickinson is always complimentary of the other team. Even he said, he's like, the thing with Nick is he's streaky.
Yeah.
If he gets hot, he's hot, but he sometimes gets cold. If I respect this Ottawa team, I think that their defensive line is absolutely elite, which worries me against the Stampeders line that didn't look great. But if they lose this game and are 0-2 with a couple tough West Division games going up, I think you have to begin to worry, because BC showed me enough, and I recognize that they were head to head, so it's easy to say, oh, one team's good, one team's bad,
right?
And I don't it's probably a little bit that's oversimplifying things, but the reality is, I'm not sure. The thing is, there will probably be a crossover this year. I think
there generally is.
There wasn't last year, right? No. But I don't think Montreal or Ottawa are really good enough to sort of push. I think Hamilton and Toronto should be okay for 1-2 there. But so there's possibility, and if there's a crossover, you're just not going to be as bad as Edmonton. Yeah. But I do genuinely begin to wonder if you're 0-2 to start the year.
Well, and here's the thing: if they look better on offense, they put up some points, and then they lose a close game, you probably wouldn't be as panicky. But if they come out and if they get beaten 2 or 3 phases again in serious fashion, and they don't show any type of life or creativity, or I want to see some creativity on offense. I just feel like that's where the league has to go. Yeah. You have to push the envelope. And I know it's early in the year and you're still working things out, but try these things at least.
Yeah. And I think I should probably, when I say I'm worried, I may have overstated that a little bit. I'm not panicking if I'm a Stampeders
they came out
fan.
And stumbled out of the gates in 2021.
Yeah. And very impressively bounced back.
Yes.
Had a bye week. Their coaches got together. It's a cool story how that actually happened.
Yeah.
And so, I'm not saying panic. I'm not saying they're going to miss the playoffs. I'm not saying that necessarily. No. But I didn't like what I saw in week 1. And I don't think Dave Dickinson liked what he saw. I think he was pretty, that was distressing. That's not really what we want. And it's just the fact that there were just the passing game being off is one thing. It's when you're not putting pressure on the opposing QB. It's when your offensive line doesn't quite look right. And I'm actually not saying the entire offensive line, but there was just enough there that you were like, some of these things should be clicking. Yes. These are important parts of the game.
Yeah.
So, this is going to be dropping Thursday morning. So there's a good chance that a lot of people who, listen to this will be possibly listening to it after the game, at which point we may look like, I may look like an idiot because the Stamps may come out and have just needed those extra couple days of practice.
Well, and we wouldn't be surprised if they win 17-3 again, like they did last year. And the Stamps defense completely manhandles the Redblacks offense, which is kind of waiting for Jeremiah Mazzoli to come back in and take that mantle. Right, Arbuckle he's got to do something in these games where he's getting this chance to play before Mazzoli comes back.
Because Mazzoli's the starter either way. He's not going to.
No, I know, but again, his value couldn't be any lower after kind of the tumultuous couple of years he's had leaving Calgary, right?
Yeah, I mean it's, and I feel bad for Nick Arbuckle. I don't think he's had an easy ride here in the CFL at all since he left Calgary, but I want him to succeed. I like the dude. He's great to cover.
Yeah.
But you're not seeing it. But I will say that across the league,
there wasn't a whole lot of great quarterbacks.
There wasn't a whole lot of great.
Let's say that.
Yeah.
It was Zach Collaros and a little bit of flashes maybe of Vernon Adams, and then maybe Cody Fajardo looked good for a little bit, but he took way too many sacks as he always does. And then it's like Bo Levi Mitchell struggled, and
Bo did not look good. And I mean,
it felt like and I don't Saskatchewan and Edmonton, they both have their problems. So
and it's the funny thing is when I tried to do sort of like preseason power rankings or whatever.
Yeah.
And hey, Vernon Adams, you made me eat my words here. I had BC pretty low because I just didn't. To be honest, I was like, okay, there's Zach, and I was like, I think Bo will be pretty decent. I like what that coaching staff I like how it caters to its quarterbacks in a lot of ways. And then I thought Jake, and I still think Jake's I don't want to overstate. I do not think Jake is a bad quarterback, and I think he had a bad game.
There's a lot there, and I just like, I just want to see him regain that confidence that he came in with a
But
couple
after,
years ago.
yeah, but after that, like I genuinely was like, I'm not sure that anyone like I like Trevor Harris, but I just don't really trust that Riders team. You know,
Cornelius has got bailed out by his receivers to
he's got good receivers.
and that's the thing. And it's like, oh, we don't.
But and then we're
don't
sitting
need a
here,
quarterback. If we got receivers like that. It's like you still need somebody to put it in the proper area.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. This is actually not something that I'm like going hard on the CFL about. There were a couple like threads last week about how the Argos don't play until this Sunday.
Yeah,
and it's like I want to be clear. Like if I was the schedule maker, I would have the Grey Cup champion opening the season every year.
Yeah.
Like the first game would be
against their rival, or maybe even a Grey Cup rematch.
Yeah,
or 10 years ago they used to do that.
To be honest, I don't actually think it like the Grey Cup rematch is a fun idea that I think has happened a lot, and I like that. Honestly, I just think that they should be the first team to play.
Yeah.
At the very least, play on that opening weekend. But like, it's very funny that like I have no idea if the Toronto Argonauts are any good.
No,
like
we won't know until all other teams.
We will have had 7 games played.
So
before the Argos, and like that's I swear on my life, this isn't.
So 6 other teams will have played 2 games already.
Yes.
By the time.
And there again, it's like I don't know how good Chad Kelly is. I just have no idea. And it makes it interesting, but also, you know, quarterback play is important and is important to sort of the growth and the health of the league. So I am hoping.
I'm crossing my fingers that this is going to be a good story.
It is also, you know, the counterpoint to that is like I feel like you and I are smart enough to know that week 1 is always terrible.
Yes.
And all of this.
We used to call it preseason week 3.
The last 45 minutes that we have been doing on this podcast is like the huge caveat that it's like, it's week 1. It's always bad.
Yeah.
That's all.
And that's the thing. It's still preseason.
Yeah.
It's still like, they're still getting ramped up. That's why they play 4 preseason games in NFL.
I am very quickly going to say, I'm going to pull up week 2 before we finish. There are 3 other games this weekend. There's Winnipeg, Saskatchewan. There's Edmonton, BC. And then there's Hamilton, Toronto. Pick one. What's the game that you'd be telling people is the game of the weekend?
Well,
it's not Calgary, Ottawa. So
no, it's not. Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, because that's in Saskatchewan. And it's just before Labor Day. It's one of those ones where it's like anytime that Edmonton and Calgary play before Labor Day, everybody crows about it. And this seems like they got to play 3 times this year. So they play Labor Day in the Banjo Bowl in week 2. So that's just going to be one that I will enjoy watching because I want both of them to lose. But
well, I mean,
but I think
Winnipeg's also the measuring stick. Right?
They are, and every team is gonna get up for their best game against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Now, Saskatchewan coming off a win where they probably could have easily given that game away and didn't. So are they going to get a little bit of boost from that? They need to fix a lot of things. I think they came out of that going, we've got as many problems as we do solutions right now. So they'll be working on it. And then Edmonton in BC. Edmonton's had terrible, terrible outings in BC lately. And so after the way the Lions looked here in Calgary, you're like, okay, well, maybe but Chris Jones, I think is going to have that team like, let's get our stuff.
They're going to be prepared.
Yeah. And then Hamilton, Toronto, like which game do I want to watch the most? Probably Hamilton, Toronto.
That's the thing.
So
there's a lot weirdly at stake there. Like I think Hamilton is going to feel like they need to win that game.
Another pre-Labor Day game against each other. So,
but I mean, they also played 4 times in 5 weeks last year. So
yes,
figure that out.
Right. I really want to sit down and see what the Ticats are going to do with Mitchell in that offense and see if they can start to figure it out.
You don't want to follow 0-2. No team wants to follow 0-2. The road back from 0-2 is a long one. It's not. I'm not saying that it means that you're buried alive, but you know, that's a big game for the Ticats in the same way that Calgary Ottawa is a big game for Calgary. But I also it's a big the Argos, man. It's fascinating. Bye week in week 1 is a nightmare. I don't know why. There's no way to do it.
Actually, and here's the thing: the Toronto Argonauts had the best week of anybody in week 1. And I don't know if you saw their little garden party where they all got their rings and massive cigars and had an absolute blast. It looked like a lot of fun down there in Toronto. So they probably had their best week. I'll see if they're still hungover from that.
I have a feeling they're not. But Ian, man, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining. And
I appreciate it.
We're hoping to do this as much as possible because I like having a co-host who I can bounce my ideas off, and we
And I'm a wealth of useless information.
and you know, thank you so much, Ian. That's kind of going to be that. I again really want to thank Charleston Hughes for coming on. Absolute Calgary Stampeders legend, Calgary legend, CFL legend. You know, it's one of the best in the business. Like, I really do hope we get to see again. Also, thank you to Ian Busby. Came on, chatted all things stamps with us for a long time. You know, that guy had my job before I did, and has been a great help to me and a mentor. So I really appreciate it. We intend on having him on many, many times. We are going to be back Sunday for Monday. And that's that, man. Thank you for watching live from the 155.